Hello and welcome to Mama Drama Trauma Academy. I'm Tammy Taylor, your teacher and host, whose only qualification is having healed my own and successfully supporting others to do the same.
Mama Drama Trauma Academy
is now in session on the topic of
the three major differences between mama drama trauma and the mother wound. I'm going to talk about these as we deal with the three primary maternal needs. The difference between how we respond to a lack of maternal presence, the provision of maternal care and maternal protection. We respond to these three essential maternal needs differently. And so that's where we find the clarity that we need between the three. And keep these in mind as we continue this conversation, because it's really key as empaths that we get this nuance. A lot of times when we pick up nuances, we can jump to the meaning of it. That is to say that a nuance is that space between worlds that we live in, the material and the physical world, that Gaia space, that living entity of the Earth Mother, that energy that breathes and lives through us in material form, and the actual material world, that space that we walk between, and that we're really clear about the nuances between those. In terms of what we feel, we can feel that nuance, but we don't always know the meaning of it. So I want us to understand this meaning that we are dealing with here, okay? It's very, very important that we focus on this subtle difference, these gradations, these variations, these phases like the lunar cycle that define our healing journey. You know, this journey, this process, it's not just some innocuous thing that we're dealing with here. And so we're dealing with the three maternal needs. And so first off, the maternal presence is distinguished between us by our toxicity threshold. And what I mean by that is when you have the mother wound, your threshold for toxicity is much higher than it is if you have mama drama trauma. And how we know that is based on the degree of wounding, injury that we feel. Oftentimes when I am talking to people about their maternal wound, this issue comes up about to what degree do we tolerate mistreatment? You know, how long and what do we have to do to make our needs known and to respond to mistreatment? What is it that we need to do? And invariably, what we're really talking about is that in general, when you have the mother wound, it's not experienced in a vacuum. It's experienced within the context of a family, of a community that treats it like a taboo, like it is to be unchallenged, the authority of the mother, and your emotions are to be left unexamined, unspoken. So this is the context that we're dealing with in general with the mother wound. When we're talking about maternal presence, therefore, the more we can realize that to society, to the community, to the family, to the mother, love is you emerging from the abandonment and abuse unscathed and unbothered. Okay? That is how you are to express love in the relationship, is to take it on the shoulder, just as she did, more than likely. It is a cycle. And you are to, whether it's true or not, to behave. And in fact, beyond attitudinally and in your behavior, but in your speech, in every way, emerge from this experience unscathed and unbothered. Therein lies the toxicity that is required in society, in community, in the family, in the mother-child relationship to maintain it. With those unwilling, unable, and not ready to heal themselves. Individuals with the mother wound have the capacity to do just that. They can interact with society, the family, the mother, the community as if nothing happened. They are fine, and as far as you know, they've always been fine. Nothing is wrong. Nothing is wrong. And if every once in a while there is an uproar or some abrupt, inappropriate reaction, which will happen when triggered, triggers are unhealed wounds. And we're going to talk about the wounding that is normalized by this lack of maternal presence, protection, and care. But those with the mother wound have the capacity to do that. Empaths do not. Empaths can pretend and may not even know that they are empaths, but everybody else does. Non-empaths know that you are an empath or that you are something different than they are because they know you're pretending. They can see that you're nervous because they are more survival-oriented or more predatorily oriented and can sense your anxiety and your need to escape or to people please in order to feel protected. There are all kinds of protective behaviors that empaths have to get along. We go along to get along as a defense mechanism, a self-protective mechanism. And other people sense that. So they know something's wrong. You see, there's the difference. So when we're talking about maternal presence, we're talking about that lack of presence showing up as toxicity in our relationship. What is toxicity? Toxicity is the antithesis of purification, of wholeness, of health, of healing. It is a breakdown of substances. It is a breakdown of conditions. And so the breakdown is the connection. Okay, the connection, the maternal, the mother-child connection, the mother-child bond. Because indeed, the mother and the child are scathed. Indeed, the mother and the child are bothered. But in one, with the mother wound, we can behave and pretend as if we are not our entire lives. With some exceptions for some outbursts here and there, which triggers will produce those unhealed wounds. Empaths cannot, okay? You know, there's MDT when the toxicity is actually absorbed to the degree that empaths become sick. Okay? And so it's not so much about others sensing it, although that can be very dangerous. Narcissists pick up on that, which is why narcissists and empaths are the yin and yang and are always in relationship with one another with an unconscious empath. Empaths have the capacity to be conscious and to have the conscious awareness of who they are, but whether or not they will use this consciousness determines a healthy or unhealthy empath. Healthy empaths are the most powerful people in the world, okay, along with narcissists. So there's the yin and yang of that. Healthy empaths are the most powerful people in the world, okay? They are the leaders we admire. They are the ones who can sense trends and things that help people and support people and new systems and health and whatnot that are convenient, that are reasonably priced, new education. All of these things that are coming to us now in this day and age are all being provided by healthy empaths. And this is what we are going toward. Second way we can see the difference between the mother wound and mama drama trauma is through what we know to be the provision of care. Now, maternal care in the sense of wounding really has to deal with the self-awareness, being aware of what your needs are. Newborn babies are aware that they need to eat, which is why we hear them cry. Now, we can say that this is instinctual, but whether it's instinctual or not, it is awareness. So the more we can admit when we feel moody or are glitchy mentally with self-compassion, the more we self-soothe. Okay, and so as we mature, we self-soothe when we have emotional dysregulation as a result of a lack of maternal presence. So this provision of maternal care becomes a self-soothing through a gentle self-awareness, okay, that we call in to balance ourselves. This goes to the self-awareness. Now, that's with the empath, because self-awareness, calling in this gentle self-compassion, is not going to happen when you are not even aware that you have the mother wound. Okay, empaths are aware that we have the mother wound. We are aware that when we are around our mothers, that our hearts are in our throats. Okay, we know that. And we are aware that we feel that we're going to be hit at any moment. Even if our mother's never touched us, it feels like that with the words. We feel that. So we know that we have the mother wound, okay? And so this is based on a heightened sense of self-awareness based on being the highest of the highly sensitive people. That's just how we were born. So that self-awareness versus the self-avoidant behavior that we have with the mother wound. This is not intentional. Again, it's just a lack of self-awareness. You don't know that you are bothered or that you are needing to address something, because you don't know that you are a dearly loved divine child of the great mother, Father God, who's never judged, condemned, or left alone. You don't know that. But that is a core belief that empaths have. So we know that. And so there's a cognitive dissonance between that core belief and the abandonment and abuse that we experience through a lack of provision of care. So self-avoidant behavior is seen in addictions, because addiction is pain avoidance. So with the mother wound, addiction to any substance is an effort to avoid pain. So often we'll see the mother and the child both addicted to substances, or to things or to people or to situations to soothe the pain. Okay, and sharing addictions as a part of the family dynamic. It's just what we do. We just all drink, we get drunk, and we lose our minds, and we forget what we did, and we do it all over again. However often, every weekend, every holiday, every other year for vacation, whatever. This is just what we do to cope. With the lack of provision of care, this somehow substitutes for this provision of care. This drama addiction is something that is caused by a resistance to self-healing when we're talking about empaths, because empaths are aware that they are drinking to avoid pain. They are aware that they are shopping to avoid pain. And so there's a lot of guilt associated with it. Again, whether or not the empath knows they're empath or not, I can't tell you how many people I've spoken with who resonate with feeling guilty about their addictions and had no idea that it was because they were an empath. Most people don't have a guilt about their addictions unless they are inflicting pain on other people as a result, which is common. But if you're just going shopping and you're spending too much money, or you're drinking too much, or you're doing too many drugs or whatever, you don't really feel bad about that to the degree that you feel like you are a bad person if you're not inflicting pain on anybody. You know, if empaths know that this is something that is not helping them to be healthy, happy, and whole. And so once we recognize these behaviors are actually resistance to self-healing, self-love, and inner work, we can examine the wound. Why am I avoiding this wound? And we see that we are avoiding the self-reflection it requires because it's uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable because of the inescapable dictate we must assert our divinity in the face of a mother who clearly does not agree with that assessment of who we are, okay? And it's alienating. So the lack of provision of care, therefore, becomes perpetuated by us in terms of self-abandonment and abuse. If we don't address it and assert our divinity with courage and healthy boundaries and begin to reverse the cycle, reverse the loss of power, we will continue to lose power, especially once we are aware of this. Once we become aware that this is the crux of our issue, that we must assert our divinity identity regardless of what it appears to cost us, it will cost us greater than we can imagine not to. So the provision of care for us becomes about self-compassion, because this awareness is not to self-judge or to self-condemn, but to face our misguided attempts to avoid the pain so we can stop doing it. and say that was misguided. In order for me to heal, and in order for me to address this constant drama, these constant triggers in my life, I have to call out the pain that's causing it, not avoid it. I have to look at this drama-filled pain as the contradiction that it is. How can I have conflict with something that I believe in that says I'm divine? That says I'm never judged, condemned, or left alone. How can I have conflict with that? Well, I have. And that's what has made me a drama addict. And that is what has made me consume and absorb all this toxicity. I was not aware. I was so confused. I was so disrupted by the trauma. I couldn't even see straight. Compassion. I don't have conflict with that. I don't have conflict with that. In fact, I don't have conflict with anything or anyone because everyone is divine. What I do have is a readiness, the ability, and the willingness to give myself the time and space I need. Whatever that is, whatever amount of time, whatever amount of space I need to breathe this out, to deal with that internal, unacknowledged, unspoken pain emerging in this situation. In every situation that causes me to feel like I'm under attack, because I am not. I am not. I have power to choose my experience. And if I am choosing an experience that makes me feel that way, I have other choices to make. And nothing is more important than that I make the best choice for me. So that's the second way that we know the difference between the mother wound and mama drama trauma. If there is an unquestionable, unexamined, unchallenged, self-avoidant attitude about what's really going on, and everyone can see that there's some toxicity going on in this relationship, but no, everything's okay. Every once in a while, there might be a blow up and all the world looks like it's going to end, but everything's back to normal in a minute. That's the mother wound. And this is a highly nuanced distinction, because empaths can also have this experience for sure. For sure. But the internal space, though, is completely different. The internal space is crying out to get out of that situation. Not just theoretically or intellectually, and emotionally and psychologically, there's some mental issues here. There more than likely is some psychotropic therapy going on with this. There is some situations where there have been some suicidal attempts going on with this. Because empaths are self-aware, whether we want to be or not. We just have the lifetimes of experience that have whittled down the ego illusion to the degree that we don't really have a choice. Whether we want to pretend and act like we are avoiding the pain and staying in those patterns that externally appear to be mother wound behaviors or not, we have mama drama trauma. Okay? Because the provision of care for us has to do with surrendering to the mama drama and the trauma and allowing Great Mother Spirit team of angels, guides, and ancestors to assist us to do the assertion I described. The third and final way with regard to maternal protection that we can see the difference between the mother wound and MDT is the accountability. Now, when we're talking about accountability, empaths feel the guilt because they know that they are accountable. Lifetimes have taught us about karma, that it goes both ways, that all that we do has an equal and opposite reaction. Whether in whatever lifetime judges it good or bad, that's what's going on. We know this, which is why we carry around so much guilt. Now, versus the mother wound, where there's just the drama addiction. Okay, that there's just an addiction to the drama. The unhealed wound remains unhealed because there is that pain avoidance. And this is different in the sense that this has to do with maternal protection. That protection that is lacking when a man is more important than you. A sibling is more important than you. A job is more important than you. More important specifically than your safety. Okay? Someone else's word. You may have been abandoned and abused by someone else at school or a neighbor or another relative. But their word is more credible than yours. This lack of protection. This lack of protection with the mother wound is dealt with by simply becoming entrenched in pain avoidance. Whenever the thought comes up that this man is more important than me or whatever, addiction to the arguing, addiction to the rage, addiction to the bad behavior, bad relationship behavior, just disrespect, not honoring, bad attachment styles. And we've talked about attachment styles. Those reactions being addictive as opposed to addressing the wound, which is a lack of maternal protection. Again, this shows up with empaths with the maternal wound as well. But on the inside, though, internally, emotionally, we don't just get to do the surface thing. We're too old for that. We have too much experience, which is why we're so sensitive. And so we feel and we pick up what's going on with our mothers and why she's doing that and why she is feeling that someone else is more credible, which is in fact that she has not dealt with her own maternal wound regarding a lack of protection. She can't give it because she never had it. We feel all that. We know all that, even when we can't articulate it at 3 and 4 years old, even though we can't articulate it at 43 years old. We know that that's what it is. And many times we don't want to articulate it. Regardless, with MDT, we feel the accountability of not addressing that issue. That as the elder in the relationship, we need to address the issue. And many of us try. But no matter what you do, the kindness, the going around the issue, tap dancing around it and trying to bring up why do you feel this way about them and how do you feel about me, not going for the jugular with I feel that everyone else is more important than me and that really makes me sad conversation is not going to address the accountability. But when we do, regardless of how afraid we are to assert our divinity in such a way to have those difficult conversations so that everyone is accountable for their own reactions, their own responses. We can't take it all on. We have to bring it up, not because we are being this big and bad, I'm going to, assert my divinity. It's never about that. It's nothing to do with none of that. It has to do with giving others the opportunity to be accountable for their own stuff. We have to, at least I had to give my mother the opportunity to be accountable for her own response to my feelings. And of course, they were invalidated by her. They were invalid to her and continue to be to this day. But that is what has allowed me to release her, to forgive her. You cannot forgive someone for something that you haven't even given them an opportunity to address. A lot of times that's why we can't forgive people, is because we're operating on assumptions. So we don't want to assume. Today we are delineating between the mother wound and mama drama trauma. That's a little short session for us today, and I hope that has been helpful in clarifying the difference between the two for you. Above all, and most of all, remember, Great Mother loves you, and I do too.